Welcome to the Evolution of Self. I'm your host, Isabel Palacios, and this is the Taking Back Your Power podcast. Hello, my beautiful angels, and welcome back to this episode of Taking Back Your Power. I am so grateful to have you here with me today, and this is actually episode 2 of season 6. So if you didn't tune into episode 1, it is now available, and I actually go into kind of a life update where I am mentally on so many different things, and I hope you go and watch it and enjoy it. I got so much good feedback from that episode. I appreciate that positive feedback more than you know, especially since I've been starting up again recently. It's just like, I love to hear what you guys have to say and what y'all think. So let's get into today's episode. As I was reading through the comments and the messages, I thought I would love to have a portal, maybe an email, where I can have y'all submit like a small paragraph of something you want advice in, because this was definitely a huge theme to a lot of the messages I was getting was they want advice on something specific or something that's going on in their life, or can you please make an episode on this topic? So I actually got a DM and I screenshotted it. I think it was a really beautiful message, it was a long message, but she had this idea for a video for a podcast topic that I want to touch upon today. So she basically wrote that she is seeking the Lord and she found it hard to let go of old beliefs, old behaviors, and she's struggling with the old beliefs and the triggers and behavior from childhood trauma, and wants God to change her heart and be more calm, loving, and not be so fierce when something triggers. And she would love a podcast episode about letting go of your old life and stepping into a more authentic version of yourself. So I chose to talk about this topic because this is something that I can heavily resonate with. And I think that a lot of people, whether you are on a spiritual journey, whether you are, rediscovering a relationship with Christ or getting into a relationship with God, whatever, whether you're religious or not, I think a lot of us can fall into this place where we feel like our past holds a lot more power over us than it really does. Our past is important because our past can shape us. However, our past should not have so much power over our future. I think that we often give our past way too much power over our future. And a lot of times it's not even us. Sometimes it's people in your life, or sometimes it's friends, it's family, it's people who knew the past version of you. And when you start trying to change your life or you go through a transformation and people see that transformation, they can often view it as a negative thing and say, oh, who does so-and-so think they are? Or, you used to be like this. Oh, remember when you used to do this? Remember when you dated that person? Remember when you used to work in that? Remember when you used to drive that car? Remember when you used to live here? Remember, they kind of want to bring your past up and kind of use it against you. And I am so against that, because I think that we should give people, and especially our friends, our loved ones, we should give them the space to grow and become their greatest version. Especially if they didn't have such a great start. Maybe they did have a bad childhood. Maybe they did have a tough time as a teen or a young adult. We shouldn't hold those things against them. And I think that's what the biggest thing as a follower of Christ has taught me, is that forgiveness is a beautiful thing, especially towards other people and towards myself, but also allow people to renew themselves, allow people to repent, right? Allow people to change and grow and become better. Allow people to redeem themselves. And I'm a huge believer in that. And Christ said it, He makes all things new. So don't ever feel like, whether you are trying to become more Christian or start a faith journey or whatever it is, don't ever think that God won't forgive you or won't open the door, right? It's like Matthew 7:7 says, asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find. knock and the door will be open for you. A lot of people think that's about the law of attraction, but it's not. It's about the relationship with God. And God is not going to come and force you into being with him. You have to seek it out and you have to look for it and allow God to come in your life and do the work for you. A lot of it is like that. Allow God to come and transform you. So your new life is going to cost you your old life. I think a lot of us have heard that trope before, but it's true. In order for us to welcome in the new version of ourselves, and in order for us to become the best versions of ourselves, we have to let go of those things that don't align with where we want to be. And that can be a relationship, that can be a job, that can be a career, that could be a friendship, that can be just your old clothing. I don't know, anything that you feel was kind of like pulling you back. And for a lot of people, that is behavior, that is habits. I think that's the biggest thing is your habits. What are you doing in your life that's pulling you away from God or separating you from God? What are you doing in your life that is keeping you from being your best self? The main thing though, as you are changing your life and as you are adapting and adopting new habits to beget a new version of you, as you are doing this, you have to have so much forgiveness towards yourself, so much love towards yourself for whatever mistakes you might have made in the past. And I will use myself as an example. Whenever I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, kind of going into college, I am a completely different person, obviously, from then, now, right? However, back in those days, I made mistakes. I did stupid things. I was reckless in so many ways, right? Partying, worried about the material things, kind of. I remember I was trying to find God in those times, like whenever it was like 19, 20, and I backslid again. I, was going through so much. And I was a person who dealt with a lot of anxiety, depression. I would have bouts of depression and I hid it very well, but it would kind of translate into me not doing so well in school, being lazy, lethargic, things like that. And instead of being super hard on myself for those things, I have so much gratitude and love for that girl because she was trying and she was living life the way she thought she should live it and learning from mistakes. And I wouldn't have had the mindset that I had in my mid-20s to now if I wasn't that dumb girl, right? Or if I hadn't gone through the things that I had gone through. A lot of them were from my own decisions and some of them weren't. Some of them were just things that happened to me. And I've been through things that I haven't talked about and I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to get into it, but the main thing is that I'm not going to hold those things against me. And I don't care who comes and tries to hold my past against me or say, you used to do this and you used to be like that. I say, yeah, we all grow and change. And if I'm not growing and I'm changing, I'm dying, essentially. So that's fine if I'm not the same girl I was at 21 to now at 30. I am still going to hold space and love on that girl and give her the understanding that she didn't have. Give her that love and forgive her for anything because she did what she thought was right. And she was living her life from her own understanding. I think that taking responsibility over your life is so liberating. And taking responsibility doesn't mean that it's your fault that things happen to you, but taking responsibility is saying, okay, something happened to me. Maybe I went through a lot of trauma, but now it's my responsibility as the adult to pick up the pieces and continue being on a path and continue working towards what it is that I want. And if this was the generational trauma that I was a part of, or maybe this generational cycle of trauma or abuse or whatever it is that you went through, I'm going to choose to veer off that path and create a new path and trust God in this path. and trust God on where I'm going and having that faith. Honestly, faith is I think people look at it as like a wishful thinking or something not rooted in reality or logic, but faith is that will to keep going and the trust that you're being supported by something bigger than you, by your destiny, by fate, by this plan that God has for you, and trusting that whatever God has for you is so much bigger and better than anything you have lost. So you don't have to be perfect when stepping into a new level of your life. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be faultless, clean, none of that. But what you do have to be is real with yourself about what you really want out of life, about who you are, about what you value, what's important to you. Because, like I said in my last episode, if we don't have a strong foundation of those things, then we're just kind of like a leaf blowing in the wind. We don't have a sense of direction and we feel lost. So the way we start to live our life authentically is see all the things that we used to do or all the behaviors that we see that don't align with us and stop doing them. Obviously realize that's not for you. And now start creating habits and a lifestyle that does align with where you want to be. So my life as an example is I went through kind of like a dark night of the soul, I would say, whenever I was maybe 24, 25. I was in a difficult I had just gotten out of a difficult relationship and I was just, heartbroken, and not only heartbroken, but just, I had a lot of mixed emotions. Sometimes I'd be happy that I was out of the relationship. And then sometimes I would kind of like miss the person. It's just like you go through all these different stages of grief, I feel like. But I knew it was the right thing to leave the relationship, but then, sometimes you'd get lonely. Sometimes you didn't know what does the future hold, things like that. But what I realized was that a lot of the things that I had told myself throughout my early 20s until now was kind of a lie, that I was telling myself that I should want certain things or I shouldn't want certain things. Like one thing that I really told myself that I didn't want was a family and kids. I used to be kind of heavily girl bossing, things like that, very focused on career, on money, on the material. And slowly I started to realize after I got out of that relationship that I needed to heal my feminine energy, that I was suppressing it for so long and I viewed it as a weakness. I viewed it as something wrong. And I started to actually see that my sensitivity, all the things that I used to see as negatives about myself were actually beautiful things. And they were actually my femininity, my sensitivity, my intuitiveness, my intuition, the need to live a slow life and be slow paced and not just focused on work all the time. I was very entrepreneurial from a young age. So it was kind of like I had to undo a lot of that, I guess, programming. And then from there, I started to slow down my life and live life in my feminine and see it as something beautiful and see it as something special. And I still see it like that to this day. I am glad that I took time to heal my feminine. I didn't jump back into dating. I didn't, wasn't looking for anything. I just admitted to myself, I do want to be a mom one day. I do want a family. I do believe in marriage. I believe in all these different things. And the things that are traditionally feminine, I accept them and I love them for myself. As I softened that, it was kind of like through time, I kind of was led back to God. I kind of had, the seeds planted from reading and from, just experiences I would have that were like supernatural experiences. And I realized through this whole process where I wasn't close to God really at all, God was with me the whole time. I just hadn't opened the door to God. I didn't receive God all at once in this like big moment. I feel like people can go to church and they'll have like a big moment. It wasn't like that for me. It was like a gradual, slow immersion, I guess you could say. I remember when I just decided to give up and like give it to God. I think it was like 2019. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to manifest this. I'm trying to do all this, trying to control, and just let it go. And it's like a path was revealed for me. Things would come in, and they still do. They happen seamlessly. It's kind of like, why did I even worry about that? Right. And so I changed a lot, and I even scare myself sometimes because I see how my mindset has shifted. And I don't mean scare in like a negative way, but it's kind of like, whoa, like I kind of shock myself because I'm like, that's crazy. Because I had such a deep identity, and whenever I was in the new age and manifestation, and I don't view all that negatively. I don't see it as like, oh, Isabel's so bad. That was a part of the process. And I think almost God wanted me to go through that process so that I am now sure of my beliefs and I'm not feeling pressured. Nobody ever pressured me to believe in God. Nobody ever pressured me to be Christian. Nobody ever pressured me to be Catholic. Nobody ever did. I don't really have religious people around me. It was all kind of self-study, self-discovery, and reading the Bible. And I think that's the key is don't let anyone pressure you. Don't let even me pressure. Don't let anyone pressure you into being something or being someone. Allow yourself to discover that for yourself. And yes, people are going to plant seeds. I think sometimes people can plant seeds of doubt or people can plant seeds of growth. But that's why you have to be so cognizant and so aware of who you are letting into your life and who you are speaking to and what you are listening to. We sharpen each other. And that's what you want, is for the people in your life to sharpen you and to make you better, not to make you worse or to bring you back to a space where you don't want to be anymore. And that's why growth is so painful, because we have to let go of so much. We have to let go of people. We have to let go of even careers, of the way we used to do things. Like for me, I submerged myself into motherhood for 2 whole years, over 2 years, and stay-at-home mom life. And it's been beautiful. I mean, I've always had a love for creating content, so I never wanted to lose that aspect of me. But I did allow myself to, honor the season I was in motherhood and just go all in and see, was this right for me? It felt right for me and I had to be in it. And of course, my daughter is my most important thing in my life. So there's no guilt there, right? But I let go of work and people, telling me, oh, you're not being productive, or where's your content? Where's this? And I had to let go of all that in order for me to come into this place of authenticity. And maybe you're in a season like that yourself, where you've had to let go of work or whatever you were showing up in as, or your business and things that felt so heavily tied to your identity. And that's okay. We have to let go of those things. It's kind of like the old saying, if somebody's meant for you, let them go. If they're meant for you, they'll come back. I see that with everything in life, like everything. If it's meant for me, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to release it. And if God wants it for me, it'll be made simple. It will feel good. It will arrive when it's meant to arrive. So don't be afraid of reinventing yourself, and don't reinvent yourself for other people. Reinvent yourself to become the greatest version of you and to be aligned with God's will. And God will do that for you. I feel like whenever you release this expectation of reinventing myself and being better, God does it for you. He transforms you. You just have to open the door and keep seeking and surrender. That's what being in my feminine taught me so much, is to surrender, especially to the divine, because when we surrender to the divine, it's kind of like you stop blocking all of it. And you don't want to block the divine. You want to leave the door wide open to the divine and let God come in and do things. And sometimes it will show up immediately. Sometimes it will take its time. But what's important is that you shut the door to the things that you don't want to give energy to. Forgive yourself for your past. Forgive yourself for any mistakes you have made. Forgive yourself for not knowing any better. And say, I did the best that I could, that I thought with what I knew back then. I didn't know everything that I know now. And give yourself the love and forgive. Like they say, forgiveness does more for the forgiver than it does in the person that you're forgiving. And I 100% believe in forgiving people, even if they didn't say sorry. Not because what they did was fine and it didn't hurt me, but because I don't need to be giving you any more power over me. I don't need what you did to keep me prisoner forever. You are so much more than what happened to you. You are not a prisoner of your past, so stop focusing on your past. Let's focus on the future. Focus on what's in your power, what's in your control. And I always say what's in our power is our daily routine, what we choose to do from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. And keep praying. Keep focusing on your spiritual life. And don't be upset with yourself if you're not exactly where you want to be right now. Like I said, everything has its season. And one thing knowing that everything has its season has taught me is that even the times where you felt like you were stuck or stagnant or things weren't happening, they actually were happening. And you actually were learning something. So see your past and your experiences as learning experiences. Journal about what you learned and use that. That's your wisdom. That's your divine wisdom. Use that for your life from here on out. You're going to see how everything will shift. You have a beautiful future awaiting you. What's important is that you focus on the here and now and not get too hung up on things that you can't change. That means the past. But send yourself so much love. You have been through so much. You have done so many things. You have learned so much, and you are a survivor. You're here today. So if you can go through those things and come out a beautiful person on the other side, not a perfect person, but a beautiful person, know that you have already won, that you are a winner. And there are only good things for you from here. So that is it for today's episode. My beautiful angels, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, if you are listening to this episode, you can tune in on YouTube or on Spotify to watch the video. And if you'd like to listen on audio, it is available on all platforms in an audio format. So you can enjoy taking back your power in whatever way you like. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'm going to work on an email, possibly. I think if you guys want to let me know in the comments down below or in a message, I'll actually put up a poll on Spotify. You guys can let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. I would love to be answering, giving advice or answering questions submitted by you guys specifically. So let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you so much. Always remember this, my beautiful angels. No matter who you may be in this life, no matter what you may be going through or what you look like, always remember your true beauty, your true worth, and your true power always come from within. I love you. God bless you. Take care. And join me on the next episode of Taking Back Your Power. Bye-bye.